So the January 6th committee is holding yet another hearing today that will focus on violent extremist groups. Like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers that stormed the Capitol, it will also focus on the ties between former President Trump, his associates, and the far right, including that Trump may have known his supporters were armed and dangerous, and that they were called to the Capitol by a tweet from the president. So let's talk about that tweet. Here it is, okay? It reads, quote, "Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild." So how did members of extremist groups take this tweet? That's the question that many of you are asking. Here's what the ex-wife of the Oath Keepers leader said.
He would have seen that as a go-ahead. He would have seen secret underlying signals in that, whether they were there or not, and they may have been there, that it's going to be okay as long as they keep the former president in office, that no matter what happens, as long as they're loyal to him, that it's all going to be okay.
And I should note that her ex-husband, who they're referring to, is charged with seditious conspiracy related to all of this.
Yes.
So, big question, what do you think of this? Do you think that that tweet is a call to arms for extremist groups, or maybe you don't? What do you think, Tori?
I just want you to know that that's like a chain, a link, and the January 6th committee is trying to link up those tweets to the call for arms, right? It goes back even further. At a debate once, they said, can you denounce the Proud Boys, right? Chris Wallace, denounce them right now. And he says, I'll tell them to stand by and stand back and stand by. That was the beginning. And then the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers kept watching and watching and watching. And at some point, he said 4 days before the 6th, Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, said, we're going to the Capitol. The president's going to be there. He wants to look powerful, and things might get real bad on January 6th. Then when he heard they had arms, he says, I don't bleeping care they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take away the metal detectors. Let my people in. All of this adds to that chain that is linking the conspiracy that added that incited a riot. This should be mind-blowing testimony that this was all sort of planned from even before. I think they've got a nice line going for the Department of Justice to take some control.
Do you think people will care, though? I mean, I say that as looking at the climate today. Are people, A, going to believe it? Are people, B, going to, will it skew or change their judgment?
I don't know, Sam, and that's really scary because at the end of the day, we're talking precedents because we have to acknowledge what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Do we want to have a democracy or do we want to have all-out warfare? And a lot of people do want civil war. A lot of this is about a civil war. It's scary to think about when we talk about terms like dog whistles, like that's not just something that people are saying. It's very applicable to this situation. It's saying something out loud to the public, but having coded language so certain people are feeling the instructions,
right,
especially if it's the President of the United States who also, or the former President of the United States, who also pardoned people who had stood by his side. So why wouldn't people assume that they would be okay if they're getting instructions from someone who was the leader of the free world?
Yeah.
So I want people just to think about what type of world what type of country they want to live in, because right now, if there aren't stern consequences for people who tried to overthrow our democracy, then it's just a free-for-all.
Yeah, and just that new poll came out and said the majority of Americans do believe the January 6th committee is doing a good job.
Well, speaking of the majority of Americans, and Jeff, I want your opinion, and please insert your opinion on this part too we're going to be talking about, as many people have discussed, the political run in 2024. So a new poll is revealing some, really bad news for both President Biden and former President Trump, who are seen by many as the likely candidates. 64% of Democratic voters say they would prefer a new candidate. They're saying Biden's age is the most important factor. He's 79 and the oldest president in history. And if you look at a matchup between Biden and Trump, only 44% support Biden's run, while just 41% support Trump. So we always want to hear from our DBL Nation. What do you think of this new poll? And if not these two men, Who do you think should run instead? Women, men? What are you thinking, Jeff?
Just to go back to that
Please
last
do.
question really quickly, I don't think Trump is going to be convicted, and I think that's all people care about. I think the people who broke the law, like you said, need to be punished, and we need to make examples of them. If you breach our Capitol, if you go bearing arms to the Capitol, you need to be punished for that. But as far as Trump, to get him proven guilty in a court of law, it's like, I was just watching this creepy thing on Netflix yesterday, right? The girl in the picture or whatever.
I saw that.
It's so creepy. I don't mean to, but this guy was an outright just creep, and I wanted the police to catch him so bad. But they're like, we can't convict this guy. Everyone knew he did it, but they couldn't convict him on those grounds, right? So the same thing with this tweet. Is it circumstantial? Is it opinion? Are they going to be able to convict him for that? I don't know, but that's all people want. They don't care if 100 people go to jail. They want Trump to go to jail. That's just what I want to say on that. As far as our president right now,
What are you thinking for 2024?
there's no way Biden could run again. There's no way. He only got in office not based on his merit, based on he was running against Trump, and he's a better option than Trump. We don't talk about Biden a lot in the show, and I know we only have 30 seconds left. We don't talk about him falling up the stairs at Air Force One, or falling off his bike, or reading the prompter with the notes in there. We don't talk about any
Or
of
a
that.
lot of his broken promises.
He has not met any situation head on with a great answer. He's just not being a great president. Even Democrats are saying he's not our
I'm very
answer.
uninspired.
I'm very uninspired by Biden.
And I think it's okay to talk about that, because if you talk about that for some reason, or if you make fun of him for any reason, which satire is part of politics throughout history, now you're not allowed to talk about it. But I think we need to talk about it a little bit more. The job that he's doing, the inflation that he's causing, what's going on in America, that's what people are talking about. This whole show's motto is talk about what people are talking about. We need to talk about it more.
I think that's great. I did think he saved us from COVID and is practically saving us from a worldwide pandemic that went very poorly under the other administration, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But I will say, what I really appreciate you is the way he speaks is very, and I'm not saying the stuttering at all, it's just dull. It's boring politician stuff, and it's not inspiring any of the Democrats when our rights are being taken away for women. So what I need is someone who's going to get the debate started. For me, that's Pete Buttigieg. He has the right tone. He goes on Fox News.
It's another career politician, in my opinion. I want someone grassroots. Listen, I will agree with you guys, Bernie Sanders, as much as I love him. I want some young blood in there. I do. So a Stacey Abrams, who shares the exact same policies as Bernie. She's a little bit more stiff when it comes to gun control, but that's someone who is on the ground. Like grassroots, unfortunately, in today's day and age, Erica, I feel like with the career politicians that we have, it's never going to be
right.
It's
That's
never
what I
gonna
worry
come to
about. It doesn't
fruition.
happen. Right.
Do you think it could?
To me, whatever happens is going to come down to the historically apathetic. People who have not let their voices be heard, people who aren't traditionally going to the polls, especially in local elections. It's going to be the people who realize that, like, oh man, when I vote, something does happen. When someone else votes for me, I have less rights than my mother did.
And don't you need to be inspired to do that?
I think the inspiration is how they're affected in their day-to-day lives.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.